Hello, everybody. Welcome to Stream Key. Always gotta watch out for that mute. How's everyone doing today? Welcome to our weekly show here on Twitch with TRUgaming, where we talk to streamers every week about ways to improve as a streamer. This week, I'm finally happy to have It's Paladin on the show after like a year of sponsorship, if not more than that now. Welcome to the show, dude. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Doing pretty good.
Awesome. Yeah, I've been trying to get Paladin on forever, and he's finally available today, which is awesome. But today, so if you guys haven't seen the show before, the way this works is Paladin and I will talk about the weekly topic, which this week is Burnout, which is really cool, for about 35 minutes. And then the last kind of third of the show, 15 to 20 minutes, will be Q&A with the Twitch chat or Discord if you can't get in Twitch. Anything related to Burnout, Twitch streaming, etc., you can submit a question that you'd like to bring up, and we'll answer it, usually for the guest, Paladin in this case, but we'll get back and forth. So if you have a question for him, just hold it till the end. I promise we will get it at the end. But so let's kind of just start off here by meeting Paladin a little bit here. So for anyone who doesn't know you, Paladin, can you just give a brief overview of your channel, what you're all about, how long you've been on Twitch, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so for those of you that have been able to stop by or have been able to kind of meet me a little bit, I normally am a World of Warcraft streamer. I'm big into MMOs, but I also do a little, every now and then I'll branch out to shooters or survival games, etc. I honestly started Twitch a long time ago, back on Xbox 360. The very first time was, I don't know, for those of you that played it, Black Ops 2 actually integrated Twitch into the game. That was the first time that I learned about live streaming. All you had to do was link a Twitch account, or it may have even been YouTube. I can't remember which one it was. But you linked it, and you just click go live in the game. Now, mind you, I just did this just to do it. I wasn't watching chat. I had no idea what I was getting into. Later on, I started competing a little bit more on Call of Duty, and I started learning a little bit more about what it took to stream, and I actually started watching my chat. And that started off as I went by like MG Paradigm or something that had to do with the group that I was playing with, stuff like that. Then I kind of wanted to make things a little bit more serious. It's a fun hobby. I wanted to see just what I could do with it. Switched over to It's Paladin, and I streamed WoW every now and then. It was kind of a struggle for me. What really hit off for my stream, I'd stream Ark for a while. And that was actually when I first saw the most success with my stream, but that was also when I kind of hit what our topic is today, is some burnout,
right,
and caused some damage. But mostly now, what I stream now is World of Warcraft. Recently I streamed a little bit of CSGO. I did it one time, streamed some League, but I'm god awful at it, and I'll probably never touch the game again. I'm absolutely horrible at League of Legends.
We all are.
But that's the gist of it. I try to promote a fun community every now and then. I can be people have seen me rage. A lot of my friends on World of Warcraft tell me that I need to take it easy on my keyboards. They all have bets on how many keyboards they think I've gone through. They say they can tell between the difference between when I'm typing and angry typing, and there's all types of rage, laughs, a lot of fun in my stream.
That's awesome. So lately it's a lot of MMOs and shooters, though, is what it sounds like for your channel. Yeah,
mostly. I would say 95% MMOs, and 98% of that is World of Warcraft, and then the rest is kind of shooters.
Man, WoW is having such resurgence lately, and I'm so tempted to go back into it because it's summer and trying to resist every day. All right, cool. So another warm-up question that I like to ask everybody: do you have any old, like, bad handles, usernames, in-game names that you're not proud of, or just funny ones in general?
There was one that my buddies called it, it was Gommel X and BK. My buddy had, for whatever reason, like I said, I was big into COD and stuff, and all of us would just make random gamer tags and throw some letters or stuff in there to represent that we're with each other. The NBK stood for No Bad Kids, and the Gommel was spelled Gommel, and it was just something stupid, but it was one of my friends had said the phrase, "Get on my mother effing level." So I abbreviated it, made it my gamer tag, threw X and BK on there, and went with it.
That's hilarious.
And, yeah.
I think I also saw something with like paintball addicts, but with an 8.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
That was my original gamer tag. Well, I'm not as embarrassed about that one as I was Gommel.
Gommel.
Paintball addict. Yeah, I used to play paintball literally every weekend, even while gaming.
Oh, nice.
So I named it Paintball Addict with an 8 and a 4 for paintball.
That's right. That's funny. All right, cool. So last little warm-up question here. Do you have like a single or maybe a couple favorite streaming moments on Twitch since you started streaming?
My favorite moment, so like I was saying, when my stream first saw some success was on Arc. The very first time that I even learned about raiding, a guy named A51 Sarge, who was big on Arc at the time, had raided me. First time ever. I mean, my stream was still really small, and that was something that really stuck with me. Is that this guy? He raided me for, I think it was like 60 people, and I'm just sitting there with like 5. It's literally just like me and my friends are sitting there watching, and this streamer picked me out of everybody else, and he was a super cool guy. I got to play some games with him, hang out with him. That's probably my favorite memory since.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are like always some of the coolest moments on Twitch. I remember they showed one at TwitchCon last year. A lot of big streamers just dropping these huge hosts on people who are just starting streaming or a very small audience. Those are some of the coolest moments. I think giving back to the smaller people is so cool to see. So that's a cool story.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so let's get into this week's main discussion, which is burnout. So you talked a little bit around your stream background so far, but do you want to kind of give your story of dealing with that burnout, maybe when you started with the ARC kind of stuff and how you eventually decided to switch into more shooters and MMOs?
Yeah. So originally I started off on Call of Duty. It was actually around Black Ops 3, I think, is when I was really trying to make something out of shooters. Well, then I noticed when I'd get on ARC, because ARC had just released on Xbox, it was something new, I would jump from, I'm sitting at like 2 or 3, I would go upwards of 15. I'm like, wow, that's a pretty big increase. I think this is something I should do. And the more I started doing it, the more I started having fun with it. Eventually I found out you could host your own ARC server using a second Xbox. So I made an investment, went out and bought a second Xbox One, the gamer tag, bought the game again, etc. And my followers, because at the time we didn't have affiliate or anything, I just let followers in, and the server was always filled. We were always having fun on it. Eventually, it got to the point where I was up with about Sarge. I was at about 60 viewers a day, and it was a blast. So many fun people. But the problem is that for those of you that have played ARC, you all know that eventually there's nothing else to do. Even if it's PvP or PvE, you've built your base, you've raided bases, you've killed dinos, you've lost dinos, you just run out of things to do. And I started getting really bored with it. So then I got kind of a wild hair again. I was like, competing sounds really good. I'm really burnt out on ARC. And then I made the biggest mistake of my stream, and I quit ARC cold turkey. I didn't even go back to it. I completely switched over to COD, a completely different genre, and never looked back. I stopped running the server, and it didn't just get rid of the community because they didn't want to watch me. It actually did a lot of damage to my reputation as a streamer and even as a server host for potential games. A lot of people looked at it as I didn't care about the server. I didn't really care about them. I was only doing it for the numbers. It had a serious amount of backlash.
Wow.
So it's been a lot to try to overcome and recover from.
Interesting. So you do see switching over to switching away from ARC, I guess, as a mistake, essentially, right? Looking back at it, because that's one thing I want to unpack over the course of this discussion, like whether that really is a mistake or if it could be a good thing in some situations. Overall, I guess you see it as a mistake. Is that right?
What I see it as a mistake was that I didn't do it gradually. You never have to go away from a game, because I still get back on there and play every now and then. Just about a month ago, I hopped back on and was streaming some PC ARC, and a couple of the old people that still had me followed from back then came in to watch, and they're happy, like, oh hey, you're streaming ARC again. The biggest mistake was how I went about it, because it was a good thing. I mean, I was burnt out on ARC. I wasn't looking forward to getting on and playing anymore. It's a fun game. There was nothing else to do. Now, mind you, this was back before they've released 2 maps since, Ragnarok and Aberration. So the last time that I was streaming it full time was on the center. But that's something else. I was streaming that game for 8 to 12 hours every single day. I wasn't taking breaks for myself or anything. I was literally just art. That's
Wow.
all it was.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that it's true with a game like that where you kind of have a ceiling of stuff you can do, especially when it's mostly PvE driven, because at some point there's just nothing else you can do on the game, as opposed to maybe a competitive game where you can always just queue up for another game and get matched against people. So that's really interesting.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about like in the moment it happened, because so I guess leading up to this, you were extremely burnt out from playing Ark. What was kind of like the decision process to, okay, I'm going to stop playing Ark and I'm going to play this? And when that happened, did you notice like any immediate benefits for you or downsides when it happened?
So what happened was is a couple of the guys that I used to compete with were talking to me. They wanted to get into a little further than before. I'm very competitive, as several people that have played with me have found out. Um, no matter what it is, if there's a way to compete with somebody, I generally try to stay at a PvP, except for like certain games. But I started getting that competitive itch. I wanted to do wager matches and tournaments, etc. on Call of Duty. So I just decided I'm not having any fun with this game. I'm gonna go have some fun with my other buddies, and it felt great because for myself, I was enjoying myself. But at like looking back, I should have maybe put like competing on COD on like certain days. Um, but the benefits for me, yes, it was I was looking forward to getting on and playing the game. I was looking forward to streaming again, which is something I had lost with Ark. With running the server, it was a lot of stress, a lot of people complaining about, oh, you need to change your rates, or oh, I don't like your rules, or and now my friends, I've got some buddies that are mods in my stream. We're talking 5 years plus. A few of them, they're literally some of the best mods I could ask for. They helped run the server, made them admin, and it wasn't as if we just cheated everything in or everything. It's just people are always going to have problems.
Right.
So I felt healthier. Like I said, it was easy for me to finish my day and hop on the stream and look forward to it.
Right, because at that point you'd sort of gotten to a point on your stream where I'm guessing you almost were not looking forward to streaming because of just all the stress that's involved with dealing with viewers who have like specific demands, like you said, or just knowing you have to play this game and there's nothing else left to do except to make up stuff to do for yourself.
Exactly. With having to deal with those viewers that weren't happy, it's much harder on a game that you're no longer having any fun playing with. Everybody that streams has had to deal with trolls or viewers that are unhappy with something, and it really doesn't matter when you're having fun. It's easy to shrug off. But when you really just aren't enjoying the game, it really starts to wear down on you, and you're just like, why am I even doing this?
Yeah.
The viewership was awesome. I had a really fun community. People would chase the trolls out. My mods didn't have to ban people. Somebody would try saying something stupid in chat, and the chat would just flood it right out. They wouldn't even let them even get the chance to try to troll me. It was great, but I wasn't having any fun with it. It was something I had to do.
Right. But after the moment you decide to switch, that, like you said, that was really good for you in that moment. Like at the time, you felt more excited to stream and just less pressure overall in the stream. That must have been something that was kind of worth the switch in some sense, right?
Yes, that was definitely worth the switch, but it's kind of like I don't know how to put it. It was just for the moment. It was in that moment when I made that switch, because
it didn't last.
That feeling did not last.
Gotcha.
Especially when like all of us here, a lot of us have fun just streaming, just as a hobby. We're just out here just to do it, to share games with people, but when you start seeing that success and you start seeing that growth, you start really thinking big and you start kind of building these dreams. You're getting excited. You're like, I can do this. And I encourage anybody, no matter what your numbers are, don't think about the numbers. But for me, when I hit that point, I thought, oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to be able to do this. Because I saw several streamers that were around those numbers that were partnered. So I thought, if I just keep growing, I'll apply and we'll see what happens. And it definitely, in that moment when I switched, it felt great. But then when I went from 60 every day right back down to 2
Mm,
is like, uh, that was rough.
yeah.
It's like I said, it's not necessarily about the numbers, but when you see that happen, it doesn't bother you at first, but then it starts to impact you when you're not growing on the game that you just switched to.
Mm,
So,
wow. All right, I want to save a little bit of like looking back at it and advice for others to a little bit later in this bit. But I did want to ask you. So you mentioned it actually impacted your reputation and sponsorships when you switched. So can you kind of expand on what you mean by that and what's the story there?
well, you guys, TRUgaming is my only sponsor, and it hurt me because when I applied to True, I put my numbers on there. They weren't uh, like fake or anything. You can look it up on I can't remember what that site is. There was a site that people used to use
Solinome,
that huh?
Solinome, maybe,
Hang on, actually I think I have it.
or Social Blade. There's a couple of
Social
them.
Blade.
Okay.
Social Blade, I think you can still see the numbers back then from my channel on there. So I have proof that hey, I wasn't making this up. Um so it hurt me, it hurt my pride a little bit because I felt like I'd kind of cheated True. And then also it killed my reputation amongst my old community.
Mm,
Uh, I cared a lot about my community. I told them I cared about them, and that's all true. I was telling them the truth. I really did. I put a lot of work into that server. My friends did. I made a lot of really good friends on Xbox through that stream, through that server, and I actually got to the point where I could tell what was wrong, who was telling the truth, who wasn't. Like I knew everybody's reputations, their personalities. There was a lot of invested in that emotionally, not just for me, but for them. They put a lot of their support. They're coming to my stream every day. They're hopping on my server. They're playing with me, having fun. And then if I were in their shoes, I would kind of feel kind of abandoned, kind of stabbed in the back because you got to think I was the one supplying this server for them, and they were the ones supplying the support for me. And then I just shut everything down. The server was on, but I was no longer maintaining it. I would go
mm,
around and clean. On Xbox, it wasn't as easy then as it is now. Um, and I still don't think the commands are as easy. I know there's you can use the same kind of servers that host for PC. You can now host for Xbox, so you don't have to have a second console. But you still have to go around and to input the admin commands is kind of annoying because either you have to type it out with your keypad, or if you use the Xbox app, which is what I did on your computer, you can connect it to and you can use your keyboard, which made it easy. I could just copy paste, etc. But I would clean out. People would leave the server or build random stuff, places or wasting. So I go in around and destroy things, keep the server clean for people so they could enjoy it. And I stopped doing that. So the server was there, but the maintenance wasn't. The streamer that they were wanting to play with wasn't there anymore.
mm. That's really interesting because I think that's something you definitely have to consider with probably any game. Is maybe your community sees it as like a selfish move because it's so hard to balance because on the one hand you want to serve your community and keep giving back to as much as you can, but if that's wearing on you and it is not really paying off for you, and maybe it's doing more harm than it does good, then at some level you have to consider what you kind of feel with the stream yourself and what you'd rather be doing.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a hard trade-off because if you keep doing it, maybe you get to the point where you get bitter with your community and then you lash out at them or something or turn back at them. So
it's definitely something that can build up. Especially, I think it really doesn't even matter necessarily what game it is, but especially with one where if you're running a server, you're gonna have all types of complaints. As I'm sure True probably has several complaints at times, whether it be community servers or servers that people are paying for. It can be just as bad with people, and eventually, if you're forcing yourself to do it, and you're gonna lash out. We're all human. We all make mistakes, but that's something you really got to be careful about, and you don't want to necessarily do to your stream. And burnout will definitely cause that. There were times that um, I would get off stream and I was just frustrated. I was just mad, which was, I mean, I never really lashed out at my friends or anybody. It was by the time I did my stream, it'd be 2 a.m. or 1 a.m. at times. So I'm just sitting there, kind of relaxing, trying to cool off, and it can be, it's you definitely got to be careful.
yeah, it's tricky because like in your mind, you're taking a break sort of to improve the stream overall, essentially, right? Because if you feel like you're doing something that's not sustainable and you're going to get to a breaking point eventually where you either just quit streaming altogether or your stream becomes bitter or toxic or whatever, by making the choice to switch to a different game, I feel like part of that, you're trying to make a better stream for the community and something long term that you're proud of, that people can come to, and it's going to be there for a long time. But maybe viewers don't really understand that in the moment, especially if it's like in your case, especially being cold turkey where you're just done with the game and you're never going back. That must be really hard for viewers to deal with. And I know this happens with a lot of other streamers too. So it's not just you. What would you kind of say to people? I guess we'll kind of go back and forth between like future and past here a lot. So for people who, with this specifically, if you're switching to a different game, what are some tips you have looking back that you would have done to communicate a little bit better with your community about what's happening, or maybe some changes you would have made with the games played?
So if you can, just kind of tough it out for a little bit and keep playing the game you're bored with. Really talk to your stream about this game you're really interested in. You want to kind of build up some hype for it. Definitely get their feelings on it. It's always good to play games that your community is interested in, but you got to remember, like with what we're talking about now, it's easy to get burnt out if it's a game you're not interested in. So mention it and then kind of go into it, maybe one night, switch and play it for an hour. And then, go or start off and play it for 2 hours and switch back to your other game. Just slowly start making that shift. There's nothing wrong with playing other games. Like there are several variety streamers that do great. But if you've got a game that you've built a community on, definitely just slowly break your community into this new game you're playing. Talk to them about it. Maybe talk about videos you've seen or something before you play, and then start playing it a little bit by little, and then you can kind of do what you want. But you also, I would say, never really let go of that game that your community was built around. Whether it be you take 1 or 2 nights a week to play it, so you can switch over to that game, make that your new main game. But you got to try to keep your community still interested. You want to show that, that's where you started. Community to me is like a family, and I want to make sure from now on, something that I'm always going to do. If I build my community again, so like right now I'm really building a community around World of Warcraft. When I switch off of it, I'm always making sure that I go back, I give them some of the things that I used to stream that they wanted. So if they wanted to see me raid, or something that's really popular right now on World of Warcraft are called Keystones, I make sure that I'm streaming those. That's honestly what I would suggest, just a gradual switch. And when you do finally get to the point where you're no longer, so like me, if I was to switch away from World of Warcraft, definitely go back for a night or 2 every week, stream World of Warcraft, show those people that you still care about the game, that they like to watch you play. And if you hate it that much that eventually you got to stop playing it, then eventually do it. But I do really suggest just tough it out for as long as you can, play it a little, then eventually you can do what you want.
Yeah, so you're on the side that you basically should never really totally leave a game unless you have to for your own reasons. Just kind of keep it there in some capacity as long as you can.
Yes, I mean, games are going to die off. For example, a game that I used to really like playing was Battleborn, which it got killed by Overwatch, considering that developer did not even think about their release date. When Overwatch was announced, they should have just completely swapped or switched when they were releasing that game, because honestly, it was a good game. Several people liked it, but how are you supposed to beat a Titan like Blizzard?
Yeah,
tough. But you got to switch away from games. So there's nothing wrong with never going back to a game, but I think you need to give it time before you stop playing that game altogether.
Yeah, I totally agree. I will say, just because it makes you think of something, I don't know if anyone knows who Dyrus is. He was a huge League of Legends streamer who sort of similar to this situation. He quit League, but kind of like still played it to entertain his viewers, but he was just hating himself whenever he played it and was dealing with stuff. Like if that's you, if you're trying to switch from a game and you like the game causes you anxiety or is actually giving you depression, like just quit that game, in my opinion. It's not worth trying to please viewers when you're dying inside. Don't be in that situation. for sure.
I'd have to agree with that. Mental health is extremely important with streamers. This is we basically embody our stream. Whatever you're putting out there, the content you're putting out there, that is you. So if you're playing a game with, like what Green just said, that's just you've got nothing but anxiety or you're getting depressed, like just quit it. I mean, the viewers, your viewers are awesome, and yeah, you should love your community, but you got to remember you're also a person. You also have to take care of your own health. That's
Right.
really the most important.
Yeah, and I think that's just so important to consider with burnout too, because like even in your situation, that's probably some extent what you felt when you made the decision to switch. Probably not as severe as like actual depression or anxiety, but you were still feeling the stress of needing to play something that you didn't necessarily want to play because people wanted to see it. And you really have to consider what you want as a streamer, what you want your stream to be, and if it's something you can sustain long term. I think that's really important to consider as well. So, all right, so let's keep moving on here a little bit. So yeah, I would say, so let's say there's someone who's right in this crossroads. They're playing a game and they're feeling themselves starting to get burnt out about it. Maybe they've been playing it for a couple months, a year or something, and they're running out of content to do, or they're just getting sick of playing the same game for years and years, and they're thinking about making a switch. What are some of like the biggest tips you would give that person in terms of like you mentioned the process of weeding the new game into there, but also like communicating with your community and trying to make sure that you can keep as much of them as you can, that sort of stuff.
So, if I could add anything else to it, and I just had it and I just lost it. So we covered, of course, work your community into it. And then there's also communicating with your community, let them know. What I think you really ought to do is stick with a very similar genre. That's something that's kind of hard to do. For the best example is I went from Ark, which is a survival shooter technically, over to Call of Duty. Now, while both are shooters, they're completely different, entirely different. So with World of Warcraft, I could switch over to Neverwinter, or I could even go and stream like some Dark Souls. It still has kind of that same, um, I guess, play style to an extent. I mean, obviously everybody knows Dark Souls is a different type of RPG. It's not an MMO necessarily, but it's still a lot like World of Warcraft. You've got different builds, different items, there's all types of ways you can build a character on there. So definitely try to stick to the same genre, or if you're going to try to break out of that genre, I think you really need to think about, like, is that what you want to do? And if you're going to do it at that point, I would say definitely go with communicating with your community, but give it like a lot of time. Because there's several people and several of the other streamers have probably seen this, where you can go and switch between genres, and that person that really likes you, no matter what you're playing, may not come around if you're playing Call of Duty, but he comes around if you're playing a different RPG, and that's just because that's the genre he likes or she likes to watch. It's just like that with you can even find that inside of World of Warcraft. There are people that like watching raids. There are people that like watching you make several new tunes and going through the old content and leveling up or farming achievements. And then there's people that just want to watch you PvP all day long or just do keystones all day long.
Right.
So
yeah.
it's I definitely think that genre is one of the most important things really to think about if you want to absolutely switch to a different game. Definitely
Right.
try to stay within the same genre.
Yeah, if you want to keep as much of that community as you can, essentially try to keep it somewhat similar to an extent.
Yeah, if it's just the game, if it's just that one particular game that's burning you out, and that's something else you got to think about, is it the game or is it the type of game that you're playing? Because for some people, RPGs eventually just they kind of get a little boring. Sometimes they can be a little predictable. So definitely consider that as well. Is it this type of game that's boring me? Am I wanting to switch the atmosphere, or is it just this game? Definitely think about that. If you're wanting to save your community, try to stick to a similar genre. I think really though the best thing, or the second best thing honestly, is just communication, and maybe even the top. But you can talk to your viewers. They're going to tell you what they want to see. Now a lot of them are going to try to be kind of humble and say, "No, I'll watch you whatever you want to play." But they may not necessarily always be honest because the viewer a lot of times doesn't want to upset the streamer. They don't want to risk any backlash, so they're not going to be completely upfront with you. But try to get an idea, whether it's, you put a straw poll out in your Discord or something, or on Twitter, you do a vote to try to find out what game to play. Communicate with your community, find out what they want to watch you play.
Right. Yeah. Trying to over communicate essentially on whatever channels you can, whether it's Discord, Twitter, the stream itself, all that kind of stuff. I totally agree with you. I think that's really important, regardless of whether you are feeling burnout or switching games. Just communication is so important to keep up as a streamer. So I love that. So I did want to ask you, since you made the switch away from your old content to your new stuff, have you ever felt this kind of feeling again and been tempted to switch genres, or have you kind of, since you made the switch, do you have that freedom now to jump around as you like to?
Since I've made that switch, I've definitely had the freedom to kind of jump around. A lot of that has to do with, again, the struggle of me trying to rebuild that reputation that I destroyed. It's I don't have the viewers that I necessarily had the amount that I had when playing World of Warcraft. At times I might, but it's dependent on kind of the time and the content that I was doing. When I stream World of Warcraft, most of the time I'm streaming Keystones. Like I said, I'm competitive. A Keystone is a timed challenge mode of the dungeon. So you got to complete it on time, you get gear, and then you can level the Keystone up. Diablo has kind of a similar thing, I think, where you can kind of progress. I don't know what it's called. I wasn't a big Diablo player. But there's actually even a competition now called Mythic Dungeon Invitational, PvE competition now. So Keystones are just huge. And when you start streaming, like you're getting into the really high ones, more people will come. World of Warcraft has a lot of content, so I haven't necessarily ran into that burnout where you can kind of run into burnout with WoW is dependent on the players you're with or like yourself. So for me, I don't consider myself necessarily a hardcore player. I'm not like up there with the people that do this as their job, like Method or some of the other top guilds. That's literally their life. They live on World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
I'm not. I mean, I play World of Warcraft every day, but I'm not going in and what we would call min-maxing your tunes. These guys go through and they try out every single different trinket that they can. They're trying every single build. They're looking for the very best possible DPS output, HPS output, survivability as a tank. And I don't necessarily do that, but there's still so much content for me to do versus Arc. Where Arc, it's you tame some things, you kill some people, you raid some bases, you kill some bosses, then you're like, what do I do now? I mean, yeah, you could always reset the server, which a lot of times people don't necessarily like. But then all you're doing is repeating the same process. So I haven't necessarily ran into the burnout. I did get really close at one point because the people that I was with, they just didn't care enough. They enjoyed the game, but they weren't wanting to go like as far as I was, so pushing content in the game, etc. So I had to find a different atmosphere in game for me, different people to play with, where they were doing the more challenging stuff. We're doing Keystones at plus 20 and higher, or we're getting further into Mythic raids, which is the highest tier of raid you can go. And I was enjoying it a lot more then. I was definitely having more fun with that than versus just repetition on a game that really didn't have a whole lot of content.
Right. So yeah, a couple things is, I mean, one, it's a much older game and just bigger with so much more to do, so that makes sense. And two, just the fact that you did move away from your stream, well, from the Arc stuff, gave you more freedom to kind of jump around. And probably if you did feel burnt out in World of Warcraft, you could switch with not nearly as much resistance or controversy around it, I'm guessing.
Definitely, especially I'm still putting my own time into it, and if a viewer comes in and says they want help with a Keystone or something, a lot of times I like to do that. If I can bring somebody in to help them get some stuff done on WoW, that's a lot of fun to me. But it's not like with Arc. With Arc, I had a server I was running. I had more responsibility to the community than just I'm a streamer, I'm entertaining them. It was they are providing me with support, and I'm providing them with the server.
Yeah.
So if I were to switch from World of Warcraft, there wouldn't be near as much backlash. I definitely, when I streamed Arc for a little bit, and like I said, I had a couple of people come back, but my numbers dropped significantly just to kind of show people that genre does matter. A lot of people watch me now because they want to see me doing keys. They want to know about I talk about different meta classes that for keystones, because there's like 20, not quite 20 classes, I don't think. There's several classes though, different specs that you can play, but not all of them are good for like the high end content. So that's something that I kind of communicate with my stream on
Sure.
WoW. So a lot of them watch me for WoW, but when I swapped, and it wasn't even like a hard switch, it was just like for a day I streamed Arc, and I could go back and streamed it for a little bit, and I could compare the numbers, and the viewer count went way down for Arc, and that's just because I haven't built any kind of community, barely ever stream it. It's just a completely different genre. So my viewer base right now, some of them like watching me no matter what I play, but again, a lot of them watch me because I'm streaming an MMORPG.
Yeah, so you've kind of restructured your community around those games that you play now, just over time, which makes sense. I did want to ask, so, I mean, you mentioned you have less viewers now than you did back in the Arc days, but I would wonder, do you kind of feel like, even though that's the case, you know, having the freedom to switch games now or play games you really want to play, kind of restructured your stream, do you feel more happy with your stream looking at it now compared to where it was back then, even with the viewer difference?
I definitely feel happier with my stream, but I don't want to say that it's because I switched games. Yes, switching the games was a lot off my chest because I wasn't burnt out. I didn't feel like I was forcing myself to play. I'm happier with my stream now because I feel like I'm thinking more about it. So like I said, it was definitely a selfish move the way I went about switching. It's good to switch. It's good to feel better. It's good to keep track of your mental health. But the way that I did it though, I didn't even talk to my stream about me switching. None of that. Didn't even ask them what they wanted to see. So that's where all these tips and things that I've come up with, I know for a fact that it would have helped because I've talked with other streamers. Several of them asked me, you know, like, what's going on? What, you know, why are you doing this? And they've told me, like, look, man, if you wanted to make this switch, you should have gone about it this way. You kind of hurt your community with this, and now they're kind of assuming this, but people have told me about their experiences, talked with me about what mine were, and it really made me realize what I did really was selfish. I didn't even think about my community. I thought entirely about myself, which, yes, put yourself first, but if you want to make this a job, if you want this to be successful, you've gotta take care of your community. They're people too. I mean, you know, everybody talks about, you know, the streamer. We're just people. You know, we're streamers, and this is a kind of like a product that we put out there, but we're still people. Well, so are those viewers. They're not just a number. They're each an individual personality. So you've got to take their feelings into consideration. Don't let them control you. You know, if you don't want to play the game, don't play the game. But if you want to make this your job, if you want to get to the point where you're getting hundreds of people watching you a day, you definitely need to think about your community and what they want to watch.
Yep, I totally agree. I just marked that on the stream with the new marker stuff because that was so cool. I think that was great. So, okay, I want to wrap up here a little bit because we're getting into the 40-minute mark, which is when we move into viewer questions. So if you guys have a question for Paladin about anything related to burnout or streaming, you know, Diebear said it's about staying true to yourself. I totally agree. That would be also a great title for this episode. But you guys are more than welcome to ask a question now. And you just tag me in the chat with GreenChord so I see it in big bright red. And we will get to that for the next 20 minutes here. But I have a few questions of my own. Just going through a little bit here. What goals do you have for the rest of the year with your channel? Do you have any plans with it? Are you just going to keep playing WoW content for a while, especially the new expansion coming out, or any event plans, anything like that?
It's definitely going to be a lot of World of Warcraft, but what I want to find myself doing is I definitely want to make sure that I get more of my friends involved. So with me playing World of Warcraft, my friends, like some of the people that have been on my stream know Simon or Dragoon or Brazen. Those people are very dear to me. They've supported the stream. Simon's been supporting it since like day one. Um, but they're not necessarily super interested in World of Warcraft. So I think what I'd like to do is I definitely want to try to branch out, and a goal is to get some games going where I have like I have a set schedule when I try to go live, but I want to set a schedule of okay, I'm playing this game this day, getting my friends together, we're gonna have some laughs because I have a lot of fun with them. They're not just mods, there's some crazy awesome fun people to play with. There's all types of shenanigans that happen when I'm playing with them, whether it be uh, like Brazen loves trolling me in game. In Arc, what she used to do is if I had something she wanted, she'd trank me. We'd be the same tribe, etc. Of course, it's PvP, so PvP is on. She'd trank me if she wanted it. She's gonna knock me out and take it. And Simon's kind of not necessarily the same way, but there's all types of fun I have with them. I definitely want to get on like a set schedule of them getting used to. I'm always going live at this time, and set like every week. You know, maybe like have set days where I'm playing WoW, but then on those other days, kind of every week, kind of change it up because we got Monster Hunter Worlds coming to PC in 7 days, I think. So that's something that I definitely want to stream. I enjoyed it on console. I'd like to play it on PC as well. So.
Sure. So basically trying to schedule more and find ways to work with your community more in some new ways is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, the schedule is the biggest thing for me because I'm pretty bad. I was happy that I actually made it on time for this. I'm actually pretty bad at sticking to my schedule of when I go live and what I'm streaming.
Gotcha. Yeah, it can be tricky. I'm definitely in that boat a lot of times as well, but do what you can. All right, so we got some questions coming in here from the chat. So Sodomi, another responsive streamer, said, would you be more influenced by the whales of your stream or the larger general community from a business perspective? That's interesting. So for people that don't know what whales is, it generally refers to people who donate a lot on the stream or financially support the stream a lot. So the question was, would you be more influenced by the whales of your stream or the larger general community from a business perspective? I guess in the context of switching games is my guess here. But generally, you know, you find more influence for your own channel from whales or from just taking the community as a whole.
For me personally, I try to stick to a community, but I have, if you're gonna let a whale kind of give you ideas or kind of decide what you're doing, in my case, Dragoon Gunner is one of my mods. He's literally the biggest supporter. 2 years ago when I first got to go to TwitchCon, he was literally 90% of the reason I wanted to go to TwitchCon. And one time I asked him on Twitter, I'm like, man, dude, this is so awesome. Like, why are you supporting me? I said, I'm just like, I have made some mistakes and, my stream wasn't that small. And he said, it's literally, dude, just because I believe in you. I like your content. I think you can do great things on Twitch. So a lot of times if he wants to see something, I kind of give him that. He wanted a 24-hour stream. And he'd gifted several subs to other people, spreading the love. I'm like, you know what? All right, I'm going to do a 24-hour stream. I set a date. But I don't think that just because somebody comes in and, let's just say, starts donating you $100 every week or something, that you should necessarily give in to them. Because there are people out there that just have money to blow and are just super toxic. They're going to think that just because they're giving you all this money that they own you. And, that's not the case. Nobody owns you. You can't, obviously, like, there's some streamers that give into the whales. But like I said, with Dragoon, he's been supporting me since day one. He's never been toxic. He's always encouraging my community, trying to help me grow my community. He's actually the one that showed me TRUgaming. When my stream was growing, he started giving me several different people to kind of apply to for sponsorship. And cool. So he's one person that if he were to say, hey, can we get this, like a 24-hour stream, or hey, can we do this? I really take into consideration what he has to say, because it's never against my stream. It's never to force me. He never demands it. So I think if it's depending on the person, or if you want to call it the whale, and how they act and their personality, I think you can kind of let them influence you a little bit more, but definitely pay attention to how they're trying to influence you. If it's just to control you, you shouldn't give into it.
Right.
You should definitely fight it.
Sure, yeah. Trying to consider everything that the person, if they have a request or something, doing your best to make that happen or give back to that person, but not so much that you let them take control of the channel or shape it to a point where you don't want it to go. Something like that, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah. Hopefully that answers your question, Sodomi. If you have any follow-up points, you can just add them in there. MPI, Mr. Pure Instinct, said, Paladin, what do you think about switching games after a story-based game is over? I've been diving into Fallout 4 hard lately, and I've noticed a few people have said, you're a great Fallout streamer, or the new Fallout streamer I want to watch. That's pretty cool. Obviously, that game will end eventually, and I'll play a new story game. Should I just accept those people? Will probably be gone then? So essentially, he wants to move away from Fallout.
So,
go ahead.
If you're wanting to move away from Fallout, and I see you said you'll play a new story game, I think you should go for it. Yes, you're going to have to accept those people are probably going to be gone. I've actually, you as well as Miss Hobo Slayer, been watching a couple people stream Fallout, and I've noticed that the viewer base, they're very die-hard Fallout. Even if they just keep replaying the game, they're very die-hard. It's just like with Skyrim. There are people that just love watching Skyrim over and over again. They just love the game that much. I think you're going to have to accept that you're going to lose some of those Fallout people, and it's nothing against you. It's not that you're a bad streamer. What they're telling you, like they say you're a great Fallout streamer or you're the new Fallout streamer I want to watch, they're being sincere about that. So don't let it get you down that they're not watching. It's just because you're not streaming Fallout. That's the game that they want to watch. You're still going to maintain those people that if they notice that you're really putting a lot of thought into the storyline, you're just having fun with it. Some people will follow certain lines, like some people like to either kill certain people off in stories or make the bad decision, etc. Some people like watching just how the streamer is going to affect that story game. So definitely accept that you're going to lose them, but don't get it in the back of your head that you're a bad streamer. It's just because they want to watch specifically Fallout, whether it be Fallout 3, 4, New Vegas, or I personally have never played Fallout, so if I just repeated the same one in the same name, I don't know how many Fallouts there are, but I know there's a lot. And so don't let it get you down at least. I would definitely accept though that you're probably going to lose some of the Fallout people.
Yeah, I think that's true of any game, and just it kind of like goes back to what you just said. You have to strike that balance between trying to, entertain people and give some to people that's cool, but you can't let those people kind of shape the stream as something that you don't want it to be. Like basically, don't play a game just because you see views on it and you actually don't want to keep playing in the future, because then you run into Paladin situation where you feel stuck on a game and then there's a bad switch later on. I feel like it's better to do it early than to try and get attached to a game, get sick of it, and then quit. And you start all over again.
Definitely.
Yeah. Also, I want to mention really quickly, Paladin, your mic is kind of popping a lot when you're talking. I don't know if it's this Discord or your mic. I just noticed it recently, so I don't know if it's been going the whole time or just kind of popped up, but I apologize for that for anyone listening. Hopefully it'll go away soon. I think it's probably just Discord. But
I think it's just Discord, because I'm not using my Yeti for this because I'm pretty bad with sound settings and things. So anytime that I move or like move my desk or something, you guys will be hearing it. So it could be my Astros doing that, or it could be Discord. I'm not sure.
Okay. I don't know. We'll see. Yes. Oh, they need to at me? Okay, I'm gonna type in chat so they can at me, I guess. Yeah, if you have a question and you can't tag me for any reason, just kind of ask it, and I'll see if I can make sure I see it. Like I said, sometimes I miss them because they're not in big, bright red, and the chat moves kind of fast, but I will try and weed through here to see if I missed any. But I think Gringa had one at some point. She just couldn't tag us. Okay, now you can tag me. Cool. So yeah, I'll give you another question really quickly here while we're waiting for others to roll in. Do you have any streamers that sort of inspired you to start streaming when you started on Twitch, or that you still look up to now?
So I don't want to really say, when I started Twitch, it was literally just a hobby. I was just having fun with some buddies. I actually started, like I said, I streamed Call of Duty, but where I really started trying to like learn and watching chat, I streamed GTA 5 on Xbox 360 with some friends. And that's when it started. So I didn't really know what I was getting into. I didn't necessarily research any streamers. Like I didn't really even watch Twitch, for example. I barely even watched YouTube. I'd go to YouTube to look up guides on how to do Easter eggs and things. that was the majority of me getting into streaming, or even YouTube for that matter. Like that's as far as it went. Streamers that have inspired me, definitely, like I told you guys about A51 Sarge. He's the one that had it was the very first raid I'd ever received on Twitch. I didn't even know what a raid was. So when people started coming in, started spamming raid, I'm like, well, what is going on? Like, that's how new I was to kind of Twitch. Like, even being in other people's communities and hanging out, I hadn't even seen that yet. Really, there's other outside of that. I mean, I've got other streamers I watch. Normally, they're World of Warcraft streamers, or I watch some of the TRUgaming streamers. If I had to pick one that kind of, I guess, I look up to, would have to be J. He's one of the Method in A streamers. Reason I look up to him is the way that he kind of responds to his chat. It's really hard to explain. He's just, out of all the streamers that I watch, you normally can kind of catch me watching him. He's another Keystone streamer. But otherwise, it's not so much that I have, or I guess actually Tally even. He talked about his backstory that really inspired me. They literally had like nothing. His now I think they're married. His wife, which she also streams, Lulaboo. She was the one working while he was streaming. He talked about how much he was having to put into the stream and how much work it was, and it just inspired me hearing about how they stuck the relationship out. They worked with each other, even though with it struggling to have bills, etc. She still supported him, supported his dream, of course. And I just thought it was really cool hearing about that, because a lot of times, a lot of us streamers kind of receive backlash, or even just being a gamer in general. There's a lot of bad vibes that people spread around about being a gamer, whether it be, you're lazy, or you're just mooching off people, you're too old for video games, etc. Which all of us here, we know none of that's true. We all love gaming, we have fun with it, and it doesn't mean you're lazy. So just hearing that story really kind of helped, because I've got kind of a family that for a long time that's how they looked at it as, is I'm just being a mooch, I'm just being lazy, I'm not wanting to do anything with my life. And now that's kind of changed since I've really, working with it and showing them the things that can come from streaming. And as well as I work, I've got jobs, I've also been going to school. But just so those three people are probably the ones that have had the greatest impact as other streamers. Though several of the TRUgaming streamers have helped me a lot, or inspired me as well, like Doc, Amy, Dust. They've really, really helped me with a lot of things. But outside of Tru, definitely those three: A51 Sarge, J. and Tally.
Awesome. Yeah, I just like to get that perspective to see. It's always cool to see who inspires people who are inspiring others, if that makes sense. I just love looking into that. Okay, so we got more questions rolling in here that now they can finally type in the chat. Mortanis TV said, "Hi Paladin, longtime viewer, first time caller. Have you ever had anyone use your stream to grief you in an MMO? Watch you and then try to join up on a pug just to mess with you? Has that ever happened to you?"
I actually have. So with keystones, like I told you guys, it's all timed. So when you start the key, you're locked into those 5 people. So if somebody leaves, you can't invite anybody back. On 2 separate occasions, I had one person join, then left as soon as we started the key. And then on another time, I had a person that just kept dying, purposely pulling trash mobs that we didn't need, wiping the group, and you lose 5 seconds off the clock. Most of the keystones, you start with about, you got like 25 to 30 minutes to do it on time. The faster you do it, you have a chance to upgrade the key by 3 or by 2 or by 1. So you got to be careful with deaths, because not only do you lose 5 seconds, if you wipe, you lost all of that progression, because there's different checkpoints. So you say you kill a boss, and you're halfway to the next boss. If you die there, you have to take like another 2 minutes running back to that point that you were just at, along with you just lost an extra 25 seconds on top of that. So those are the 2 situations I've had. Not so much really in raid situations or anything. Something else I did have is when you do these keystones, there's a website that several of us use called Raider.io. It tracks your progression on these keys, gives you rank, a score, etc. I have my Twitch link to that, and there have been a couple times that I've had some people come in and try to grief me in stream because they were mad about, like if I called them out in a keystone or if I was having a bad key, because everybody makes mistakes. Those are some situations I've ran into with trolls. Only twice have I been griefed in game, but there've been a couple times they've come from the game into my stream to try to troll me in stream.
Gotcha. Wow, I never heard of that. I feel like that would get very annoying very quickly.
It can get very annoying.
Gotcha. Well, cool story. Hopefully Mortanis enjoyed that. So Mini Legend said, simple one here. What do you struggle with when streaming? So generally, I guess, are there any like big things you're trying to work on with your stream or problem points you see with your stream?
With it being World of Warcraft and myself personally, a lot of times when I focus, I'm focusing on whatever it is I'm doing. Now, during Keystones, I can't necessarily respond. I can look over for a second, but it's because you have to move efficiently. You have to DPS certain times. You've got to be ready. So, like, whether I'm healing, DPSing, or tanking, sometimes it's hard to take my eyes off what I'm doing because, again, it's a race against time. It's a challenge. There are keystones that are easy, but the ones that I'm doing, they take a lot of skill. You have to, and it's a lot of repetition because there's pathing and things. There's mobs that you'll skip in the dungeon. There's certain ways that you'll pull things. You got to have the timing down. There might be a pat that you've got to grab, or what I mean by a pat is some of the mobs will walk around the dungeon. They've got a specific path that they will walk around. So a lot of times you'll hear WoW streamers say, grab that pat, or watch out for that pat incoming, etc. There's certain pats that you got to try to grab. So my biggest struggle with streaming at times is during my keys is interacting with chat. The second thing I'd have to say is when nothing's going on, talking, because sometimes it takes 20 minutes to fill. You got to get 5 people for these dungeons, and the higher the keystone, you need people that have experience. You want to make sure that you've got a solid group because you're not trying to go in there and wipe a bunch of times and fail the key. So it takes a long time to fill sometimes, and sometimes we're just sitting there not doing anything, and it's hard for me at times to keep talking and really keep chat going. I mean, if somebody's talking to me, I can respond, but outside of responding to people, that's where my biggest struggle is just to like give them something to watch. It's like not just me standing there.
Yeah, it's a lot of like filling dead air kind of while you're waiting for those 20-minute queues, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Yep. Thanks for the question, Mini Legend. I want to circle back to that if we have time, but Green Guy has a question here for us. She says, as a new streamer, how does one set themselves up for success to avoid burnout? I'm loving the game right now, but I anticipate I will get bored and want to switch. And then to go along with that, will that classify me as a variety streamer? I think that's...
Ooh. I really like that question, actually. I think you can never, like, it's going to take time before you can really figure out how you're going to avoid burnout. You need to think about yourself personally with games you've played in the past, what you like to play and how long you played them. Whether, you can go back on Steam and you can kind of look and like, oh, I really like this game, but then you can see you only played it for like 10 hours. Well, that game, you may have liked it, but it didn't interest you enough to keep playing it. You got to really think about what you're interested in. If you're wanting to avoid burnout, try to pick a game that has a lot of content, or there's nothing wrong with switching a lot. I'd say variety streamers, to me, a variety streamer is constantly switching games, or so I guess a good example would be like I've noticed Doc a lot of times starts a game, finishes a game, then he'll switch. Doc plays a variety of games, but to me, that's not necessarily a variety streamer. I think variety streamers are the ones that every single day they're playing something kind of different. They may have a set game that they have built a community around, but every other day they're switching it up. They may be going IRL and doing a talk show, then the next day they're playing a first-person shooter, then the next day they're doing some kind of MMO. To me, that's a variety streamer. But there's nothing wrong with necessarily being a variety streamer. That's just kind of, to me, that's just what you're defining yourself as. So if playing a different game every week is a variety streamer to you, then call yourself a variety streamer. And if somebody says, well, that's not a variety streamer, will you just explain, well, every other week or every week I'm switching games. I play a variety of games. So it's kind of how you define it. There's absolutely nothing wrong. with playing different games, being a variety streamer. But if you want to avoid burnout, you got to think about the game, kind of research the game, and think about the games you've played. That's the best advice that I can give. I can kind of look at a game and I can kind of tell if I'm going to get burnout or not. For me, it's is there a competitive side to it, or what all is involved in the game. I can kind of decide if I'm going to get burnout. So that's the best that I've got for you though, because for the last year, I've mainly been streaming World of Warcraft. So and like I said, World of Warcraft's been, I started playing back in 2012 and it's even older than that. So there's all types of content in that game. We're talking there's going to be a total of, I think, 6 total expansions this next one. So there's a million different things that I can do. So it's hard for me to kind of really say, but I think it just personally, you got to think about yourself, like what you like to do. And that's going to be how you can figure out whether you're going to get burnt out or not.
Yeah. I mean, the label variety streamer is there's no real definition of it other than you play multiple games. I mean, yeah, it could be every day, every hour, once a month or something. So I don't think it really matters too much how you classify yourself, variety versus single. I think that it really only matters mostly to you as a streamer. Like maybe if you built your community around one certain game and you're known for a certain game, but no one's going to be like, well, you stream once on Tuesday and a different game on Wednesday, but you didn't do a different game on Thursday. Like no one's going to nitpick that kind of thing. So I wouldn't worry too much about the variety label. But I do like the question of setting yourself up for success. And I think if you do kind of go for a variety mindset, playing different games, knowing that you want to play different games on your stream, that's important to know because that will help you avoid burnout later. Because usually variety casters don't deal with nearly as much burnout as single game people. So
definitely.
Great question, though. I really appreciate that one. I think that is most of the questions we have here. I want to circle back around to mini legends here just to end, because you said one of your biggest struggles is trying to interact with chat while you are doing like really intensive things. What has that been like? Do you have any strategies to try and do that more during an intensive raid, or like what kind of steps have you taken to try and improve that?
So I'll just use a raid for example. Last night is actually the best example for me. Mythic rating is the highest tier rating in World of Warcraft. I'm a part of a guild that is 11 out of 11 Mythic, meaning they've killed every single boss at the highest tier. Now I am not. I joined them just before or slightly after they've killed that last boss. Last night, however, I got to fill in for them on my healer because their Paladin healer could not make the raid that night. So, but they're not doing full Mythic clears. All they were doing is with some of the Mythic raids, you'll get a quest to get like a certain item off of a boss 4 times in a row. It's just a quest item. It drops each time you kill them. And then you kind of unlock a skip. So that's important. Blizzard has put this into their raids because when you've got guilds that are competing for world first, it rewards those guilds that have put in a lot of time. They no longer have to clear all those other bosses that aren't worth their time, so to speak. They can jump straight to their progression or get closer to their progression, have less bosses to down. So my guild was, of course, you have to kill the first boss, but then you can skip to the last 2. So I helped them on the last 2 that I've never once fought. I've watched videos several months ago on how to fight them, how the fights work, how the mechanics are, but I've never actually been in game with them. So during the chat about the first time that we pull a boss, I kind of see where the intense moments are, and then I kind of figure out when I can glance over. Because as a healer, for example, there's moments where there's immense amount of damage coming out, and you got to just sit there and spam heal just about everybody you can. But then there's moments where you just sit there for a few seconds. So I kind of figure out after a time or 2 of fighting the boss, I figure out where I have a moment to look away and catch up with chat. Most people that watch World of Warcraft understand that the streamer can't interact immediately, especially depending on the content, so that helps. But it's definitely just experience and practice. So with the bosses or like the keystones, I know when we're going to be skipping trash and the path that we're taking, so I just run for a second. Or there are skip strats where a resto druid, for example, can go into cat form and can stealth through everything, get to a safe spot, and the tank just runs ahead and we suicide run, and then the healer can do what's called a mass res. It has like a 100-yard range and resurrects everybody within that range, and we skip all this trash. So during those times, I'll look over, catch up with chat. I'll check, try to go through the alerts, like if I missed any. Usually, if I hear a sound, like my sound for my alerts go off, I'll glance over real quick, say, hey, thank you for the follow, or thank you for the sub or something. And then once I have a moment, I'll go back to it and give them a little bit more.
Sure. So it's just kind of learning the game, thinking through it strategically in advance. Like, okay, these are windows when I can talk to chat when it's not so busy. I think that is true for a lot of games. I play a lot of League of Legends, so it's a very similar situation where maybe this is sort of a downtime during the game or during when I'm playing this raid or something. So this would be a good time to talk to chat. So let's make sure I do that when that comes up. Yeah, I think those are good things to think through if you're playing a very intensive game that requires you to focus on it for. There's a lot of games like that, to be honest. Even like Fortnite, Overwatch, anything you have to focus a lot of, but have windows to maybe chat with. Yeah, it's important to think through that.
It's just experience. I wouldn't expect anybody that's just started, whether it be Fortnite, PUBG, anything like that. You're either going to be focusing on your chat too much, and you're getting, like, if you're on Fortnite or PUBG, and you're just getting killed all the time because you're not paying attention, or you're going to be focusing on the game and not saying anything to chat. So it just comes with experience.
Right.
Play the game more, and you can even do it off stream. Kind of try like just playing it. Just getting used to the game is going to help you be able to interact while playing.
Right. Yep. Okay, last question here. I see from Stephen Ashford just asked. He said, is it helpful to use scene transitions to help set the context for when chat should expect more interaction with you? For example, in-game scenes versus between-game / waiting screens. So do you use any different scenes for when you're playing, when maybe you're going to be interacting with chat more versus focusing on the game more? Or do you think maybe that would have potential if you don't?
I don't, and I do think it would have potential. So, for example, when I'm waiting for a raid to fill, or I'm waiting for the group to fill, like I'm not necessarily the one building the group. Okay, so the leader's sitting there picking through people. I think it would be great where if I had a scene, and I don't yet, but where I kind of minimize a little window of the game, and I like expand my camera or something. And what I can do is I can have it to where it's like, of course, I have like a bigger chat window or something, but I could be, for example, World of Warcraft, I talked about Raider IO. Well, I could set up the scene to where I pull up my IO, or like I just go and watch some random videos or something to keep the chat entertained while waiting for it to fill. I think that other scenes are definitely helpful. As long as, like you said, if it's just like the in-game screen versus like a waiting, definitely. And I'm not saying this is what you were suggesting, but I want to make sure I would not suggest to people trying to switch a scene like mid-game, where like you're like, okay, guys, we've got a moment to talk. I wouldn't suggest that. Don't try to get that complicated with it. Just keep it simple. But I definitely think that having that scene for like when you're waiting is a great thing to have, and it definitely will help with your chat interaction for sure.
Yeah, I've never actually heard of that idea of switching sort of like mid-game, or WoW being a very long game, like switching different scenes during that process. That'd be interesting. I don't know anyone who does it, but I think that's actually a good idea for having like, okay, now is a good time to talk to me. Now is I'm focused on the game mode. That'd be cool to try out. So I definitely encourage you to try that if you haven't already, Steven. I might actually steal that maybe or something. We'll see.
Well, like with World of Warcraft, it'd be easier to do it like in-game. I just meant like during the middle of something. So like if I was in a Keystone, I wouldn't try to have a scene where I've got to reach away from what I'm doing, like I've got a stream deck. I wouldn't try to switch scenes mid-run. But if I'm just standing there, not doing anything, I think having that scene would be great.
Right, absolutely. All right, cool. Well, that is going to be this week's episode. So thank you to Paladin for coming on the show today, man. I really, really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah,
it's been a little while since I've tried to do anything like this. I usually just kind of lurk.
No, it's all right. I think this went great. So thank you again so much. Where can people find you if they want to check you out after this?
Well, you guys can find me on both Twitter or Twitch at just put in ITZZ_Paladin. So the same as the bottom of the screen here, as that is spelled, that is both my Twitch and my Twitter. Any kind of social media that I have, that's just what I go with. So you guys can find me there. I'm usually live around, try to go for 6 p.m. Central. I can't guarantee that I'll actually hit that mark. Sometimes early, sometimes a little late, but definitely find me on Twitter. But that's where you guys can find me at. So if you like World of Warcraft or interested in, come say hi, check out, hang out. We have a lot of fun. You guys can see the rage side of me. That game brings out a little bit of anger at times, just a little bit.
That's awesome. All right. So that's gonna be it for the show, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. I should grab the Spotify link really quickly because guess what, guys? We're on Spotify, which is pretty cool. So let me grab that link for you. If you haven't already checked out the show, it is a podcast, so you can listen to it on iTunes, Spotify now, SoundCloud, Spreaker, whatever. If there's a podcasting app out there, you can probably listen to us on there. So I'll drop the Spotify one right here if you want to check it out. And we will be switching back over to Doc. So if you guys want to hang around, stay tuned. Doc is playing through No Man's Sky since the big update, and it's been really cool to see. So I hope you guys will stick around for that. And until then, we'll see you tomorrow for the call-in show with Valak TV, and I think Gamer Dad is probably calling in tomorrow. So we'll see. That's at 11 a.m. Eastern. Until then, guys, we will see you later, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Adios.
Have a good one, guys.